Thanks, Deb. Yeah, you forgot to mention I'm the second guy from Iceland today. And as you know, Iceland is a country that stops air traffic across Europe if we need a natural disaster to make our country well known. But how many of you have actually been affected by disaster in one way or another? A few of you. How many of you have actually responded to one? Okay, a few. How many of you have thought about what could I be doing to help out when you see those pictures on the media? Yeah, quite a few of you. Well, I want to start by telling you a bit of a story. And that story is from a day that pretty much changed the lives of many of us in this field. And that's January 12th, 2010. The earthquake struck Haiti. At that time, I was the team leader of the Icelandic Urban Search and Rescue Team. And for some strange reason, we happened to become the first international rescue team to arrive in Haiti, beating our friends from Fairfax, Virginia by 10 minutes, something we keep reminding them of every time we meet them. And I led there a team of 35 people, 34 men and 1 woman, that had the gruesome task of going through the rubble and trying to find survivors. And I can tell you that the images we saw that first evening in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, are images that will forever be in our mind, and we hope never to have to see the tens and thousands of bodies that we saw lying on the streets. But thankfully, to cheer our minds up, very quickly after we got there, we managed to rescue 3 women out of a collapsed supermarket. And for those of us who have been doing this, like me, for 20 years, that's what we do this for. It's for the smiles of the families when you rescue their loved ones and when they get reunited. That is something that gets you up and gets you to do this every night. For the last 20 years, I've slept with a mobile phone next to my bed. But what I wanted to tell you about was what happened on our last day in Haiti. We had been working pretty much nonstop for 10 days, doing 20+ hours a day of going through rubble and looking at the devastation. And the UN team that coordinated the response asked me whether our team for our last full day wanted to rather go and kind of do what we call, responding to the reports of someone being trapped in that house and kind of moving between those spots that get called in, or whether our team wanted to go to a place called the Hotel Montana. And Hotel Montana was a place where a lot of the humanitarian workers and their families who had lived in Haiti and worked in Haiti, they actually lived there. And that hotel had collapsed. And when I asked my team, they very quickly came back to me and said that it was unanimous that they wanted to go out to rescue their colleagues and their families, because that's what they looked at the people at Hotel Montana. And as they went out there, I stayed back in our base camp, and for the first time during that mission, I actually went on Twitter. Now, I have to tell you that it costs $6 a megabyte to use the internet over satellite, so you don't use social media that much when you're connected like that, especially Facebook, which will then cost you $12 just to load the first page. And I wrote a short sentence saying, I'm incredibly proud of my team to choose to go for body recovery at the Hotel Montana today. But within 30 minutes of tweeting that, I got an email. And that email was from one of the relatives of the people who were missing in the Hotel Montana. And they asked me to go to a Facebook page that had been set up where those relatives had for 10 days been trying to get information about what was happening. And for the rest of the day, I spent a few of those $12 to refresh that page. I provided updates about what was happening within Haiti, within Hotel Montana, and actually that there were teams there searching. And I told them right away, I'm not going to tell you whether we find any bodies or what we do, but if you want to share information about things that your loved ones had that might help us figure out where they were in the building, I'll relay that to the teams on the ground, and I'll make sure the teams on the ground are also relaying who's working there. And that connection lasted for that day for me, and then our team went home. But for the next 73 days, while the rest of the bodies were being taken out of Hotel Montana, that social media connection stayed alive. And the teams who worked there had direct connections with the families of the people who were there. And that was my first experience in the power of social media during a chaotic environment that a disaster is. But at the same time this was happening, a new breed of responders was born, one that some of us are calling digital volunteers. And those digital volunteers are people who are using social media to help both share information, gather information, process and analyze information to help with the response to the disaster. And I have to admit that during Haiti, most of that work probably wasn't very useful because the connections between those digital volunteers and those responding were very loose, and we didn't know about that information coming. But since then, we've had great examples of this crowdsourced model of digital volunteers being used very successfully in disasters since 2010. And we're not perfect there yet, but we certainly will find new ways to leverage that model. And there are also other things that are happening at the same time, and that is the understanding from the response community itself of the power of this media, not only to gather information and share information, but to create a dialogue between those affected by the disasters and those who are responding to it. And I want to mention a couple of great initiatives around that. One is the hashtag SMEM, Social Media for Emergency Management, which is being led by the emergency managers, especially here in the US, including Craig Fugate, who heads up FEMA, who is really pushing for that dialogue to happen between those affected and those responding. And they have weekly chats, SMEM chat, every Friday, and that is really where a dialogue is happening and a change is happening within the response community. Another example is one of our members, which is the American Red Cross, who have now set up a digital operation center to use and help or to manage their digital volunteers to help share information during disasters. So as the future is going to bring us, unfortunately, more disasters and worse disasters, rest assured that social media and technology is being applied, and we at NetHope have started bringing together the community of responders, the community of academia, and private sector and digital volunteers around an initiative which we hope to launch this fall called the Open Humanitarian Initiative, which focuses on strengthening this kind of response. Thank you.
Gisli, that was beautiful.